Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Niccolò Bencini, the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Barberinos, a brand that has redefined Italian grooming by blending classic barbershop tradition with modern luxury and innovation. So welcome to our podcast, Niccolò.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure on our side as well. Now, under your leadership, Barberinos has grown from a single Milan shop into Italy's leading luxuries men's grooming brand, boasting a network of high-end barbershops, a line of premium grooming products, and a fiercely loyal clientele. And I'm curious to start us off asking, how did you got into the grooming industry and e-commerce in the first place?
Sure. So both me and my business partner, my co-founder, we are our background is very different from what we are doing right now because we both study economics and we both started our careers in finance and consulting. So I have like 8 years before starting Barberinos in consulting in a major Italian bank. And this is also where I met my business partner. And that's actually how we started thinking about launching something in the grooming industry. Because when we were like doing a project in London, we used to go to a local barber shop, which was becoming more and more experiential. So it was less of a place where to go just to like have a service, and it was more of a place where people used to go to have an experience. And this was something that we really appreciated at the time. So when we came back to Italy, we found out that there was nothing like that in Italy. The market was actually very fragmented. So there were either like a unisex salon for women mainly, and then where men used to go, or like barber shops that were dated back to the 70s. So with no capex, no experience at all. It was just a place where to go and get a service, and the places were actually quite ugly. So there was
Mm,
no place where you could have like an experience that was designed specifically for men. We studied the industry and we found out that men's grooming inside the cosmetics industry was like a very small niche that was growing really fast. It has the highest CAGR inside the industry after deodorants, but it was really a niche. And so we understood that there was a big potential also because like men were changing their attitude towards grooming, towards cosmetics. Like before in the 90s, in the 80s, it was impossible for a man to use like a moisturizing cream. While after actually we identified in David Beckham the very first metrosexual who
mm,
made it possible for heterosexual men to start taking care of themselves, made it normal actually. And so after him, like we were seeing that this industry was growing really fast, and it was like more and more often men were like spending significant amount of money in products, in cosmetic products to take care of them. So we
mm.
decided to enter into the market leveraging our Italian background. So we said, okay, let's start from a barber shop that is inspired by the classic Italian barber shops of the early 20th century, in particular Sicilian ones. And let's use the charisma that we will be able to gain with our barbershop chain to launch like a product line. So a line of cosmetic products and accessories for men, which is relatively easy to be made, but it's of course very difficult to be sold. And so we say,
Mm.
let's use the charisma that we are gaining through our barbershop chain in order to be able to sell our product line. And this is exactly what we did. So we opened the first shop in Milan back in 2015. And from there, we opened more and more shops based on our success and also on the funds that we were able to collect via investors, private investors, venture capital, angel investors. So we did a few capital increases and we managed to grow in Italy. We also launched our product line that we are like improving and making bigger every year. And then in 2024, we decided to also expand Barberinos to the United States. So we opened our first store in New York City, 520 Madison. And now the strategy is to have, of course, the stores that we already have in Italy and the products that are distributed in Italy and also in Europe, and to use this like heritage also in the United States. So to expand both through retail locations and also distributing our products both online and, of course, through wholesale distribution, so through retailers.
And what made you choose to go to the American market? Because there's many strong other markets in Europe, and of course in America you have obviously one of the strongest economy, but on the other hand you have the biggest competition as well. So what made you choose going to the US rather than maybe some other country in Europe?
Of course. So we were actually the classical approach, let me call it this way, is to go first in Europe, and then if the expansion in Europe goes well, then you do the big step and you go to the United States. Well, we tried to expand in Germany, but we found out that, I mean, what we really have is our made in Italy heritage. And the made in Italy heritage in Italy is worth nothing by definition because you're in Italy. In Europe, it's worth something, but I mean, it's nothing special. I mean, Italy is very close, so it's I mean, yeah, okay, it's nice you're Italian, but I mean, nothing happens. While in the United States, it's something that is really appreciated, really appreciated.
Mm.
And also consider that like all the countries in the European Union, they are a different world one from each other. So if you expand in Germany, you have German regulations, you have German custom, you have like it's completely different from expanding in France, for example, which has a completely different regulation, completely different system, completely different taste. So I mean, every country was a big effort. While I mean, the United States, of course, it's a huge effort to establish the operations there. But once you do it, it has a huge market and it has all the same regulations. So like if you go in New York, if you go to Miami, if you go to Chicago, I mean, it's the same story basically. There are a few minor differences, of course, between the cities, between the coasts, so East Coast, West Coast, but it's the same country, it's the same regulations, it's the same customs. So it's once you do the big step, then it's easier to expand. And of course, the scaling potential is huge compared to Europe.
Absolutely. What I'm interested in is, of course, nowadays tariffs are the main point of conversation when it comes to driving or manufacturing products outside of the country that you're selling in. So, did that affect you in some way, or how are you dealing with all that situation?
Well, for the moment, it's not affecting us because we already have a like big storage of our products in the US.
Mm.
For sure, I mean, most likely will affect us. Consider that, I mean, the products are produced in Italy and then are sold from the Italian company to the US company. So it's an internal transfer, which means that, of course, there is a markup. It has to be, but the transfer price is relatively low. So we are not selling from Italy to the final distributor in the US. We are selling from a company to another of the group. So the transfer price is, of course, has a markup compared to the industrial cost, but the transfer price is not so high. Therefore, the tariffs are calculated on the price that you're selling the goods. And this, of course, is something that helps us. On the contrary, if you're selling a product from Italy to an American customer, then of course the markup has to be higher by definition. And so in that case, the tariffs, of course, have a greater impact.
Mm.
So for the moment, we haven't experienced it directly, but it's something that we are not expecting to be too much of a problem for us. What was actually a problem at the beginning was the being compliant with the FDA regulation. Because, for example, I mean, Europe for the cosmetics labeling has some rules, and of course, the United States have completely different rules depending on what you have to write on the label of each cosmetic product. So, for example, that was a big issue because we had to redo the whole product line because we had to redo the whole labeling to make it compliant with FDA and also to Europe. So that was a very big effort, and that was kind of expensive. But I mean, now we have the full product line that is compliant with the FDA requirements, so we should be.
Did you need to like change also the consistency and the ingredients in the products?
No, no, not really. Usually, Europe is much more strict. versus the United States with respect to ingredients. So many ingredients that, for example, are forbidden in Europe can be sold in the United States. So
Gotcha.
we didn't have to change anything. There was only one product that we couldn't sell in the United States simply because there was an ingredient that for the US is considered to be a drug. So it has to be sold in a pharmacy. While in Europe, don't ask me why, but it's not a drug. It's a very normal ingredient that you can find in every
Mm,
deodorant. And so in Europe, you're allowed to sell it. And in the US, no, you need to be a pharmacy or you need at least to register the product as a drug. So it's much
yeah.
more complicated. That was the only exception.
That's very interesting because it's usually the other way around, as you said. But I'm really liking the strategy for the tariffs because I haven't heard about that one before, and I also think that actually starting a as branch of the company in comparison to let's say trying just to sell the products and deliver them straight from whatever manufacturing location you have, depending on how big of your company is, might make more sense and might save you more money. So that's a actually very a good thought move on your end. And pretty much, I would like to go back into, of course, bringing to the American market, bringing that Italian heritage. I also think that similar to Europe, I still think that in Europe, Italian brand is one of the higher quality expectations. So, of course, with the good food and a good reputation that Italy has, I think it applies on very number of products. But I also think that in America, it's much bigger. But I'm also interested outside of just the point of origin. What are the other maybe strategies or marketing efforts, or how are you trying to differentiate yourself on the American market? Because I assume from your experience as well, there's much more competition than what you're seeing in the Italy, even with such a unique concept that you have.
So on the service side, the competition is there, but as in Italy, is very fragmented. So there are no big chains that are, of course, that are targeting the luxury segment as we are doing. So
Mm,
on the, let me call it, mass market segment, there are very big chains in the US that are typically franchising, and they are really big. They have thousands of barber shops, but they are not our direct competitor. While as far as the luxury segment is concerned, it's really super fragmented. So there is maybe like a chain that has 5 or 6 locations, another one that has 2 or 3 locations, but they are very small, very fragmented. So there is nothing. The only competitor that was there was the art of shaving. And the art of shaving was sold to Procter and Gamble in 2009, and Procter and Gamble then decided to take only the products and completely shut off all the retail locations that were also offering the service, the barbering services. So
mm,
now on the service side, there is no direct competition. On the product side, actually the situation is quite similar because there are competitors, a lot of competitors on the lower segment. So if you
mm,
want to go for a, let me say, the kind of product you can find at Target, there are many competitors. On the luxury segment, there is no brand that is like really leading the so there is no reference brand that you can find at every department store, like luxury department store, that has the leading position, so the top position in the department stores. So the competition, yes, is there for sure, is stronger than in Italy. So there are some relevant brands, but all of them are positioned in the, let me say, lower end of the market.
mm. Okay, that makes sense. And I really always advocate that you need to be different than the rest of the market to create like your small niche of your own so your product is really uncomparable. So I'm very interested in learn like how are you creating that emotional connections through the premium products, through the experience that you have in the barbershops. So I'd be interested in first like what is that extra added experience that you're offering in the barbershops, and then what is the product experience that customers can have at home with your products.
Of course. So of course, there is a strong connection between the products and the experience. Actually, the experience that we are offering is what, as I was saying before, is what gives us the charisma that allows us to sell the product. Because what we claim is, I mean, we have like a barbershop chain. We take care of thousands of men every year, tens of thousands of men every year. So we know what's best for you. We know how to take care of you, and we know which are the best products, what a product should have in order to take proper care of you. So this is really our claim. And also, like the product, so the stores, the physical stores are always in like very upscale places that also have a sort of charisma, let me say. So you can find Barberinos in New York. You cannot find Barberinos in I don't know, a small city of Ohio, for example. But if you live in Ohio and you want to have a piece of that experience that you see at Barberinos in New York, the product is what brings you the experience there. So basically, through the product is a way to let you bring this experience at home. In fact, our strategy in the US, our retail strategy, is to open our stores in those cities that usually all Americans visit sometimes in their lives. For example, New York, Miami, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, or for example, Orlando, Disney at Orlando, for example. All the Americans go there for holiday, for vacation. And so they see Barberinos, they try the service at these locations, they also try the product, and then they like sort of link the product with the very nice experience that they've had once they were Las Vegas or New York, for example. And so they buy the product online on Amazon or at their like department store, at their Neiman Marcus or Bloomingdale or whatever that they have close to their place. So this is the idea: is to link the experience that you're doing at the store with the product, so that the product reminds you, the scent, the feeling, and everything that the product has reminds you of that experience that you've had that you liked so much.
And I'm curious because like all of this sounds amazing. And I would say that there's, from my point of view, a bottleneck of the customer first needs to kind of look and have that experience in your physical location to then translate that to the product. But you had a tremendous growth on Amazon, for example, in Italy, right?
Yeah,
So I'm curious, like, what kind of strategies are you using to drive the traffic and convert it? Is it only the traffic that had the experience with the retail store? I'm thinking that probably you're already able to convert some other people that even haven't had any
of
experience with
course,
your
of
product.
course, of
So
course.
what is your kind of magic
Well,
strategy?
the moment that you have the experience, you have a lot of content that you can use on like social media, on like marketing. I mean, even if you haven't tried the experience, you can actually see the experience itself, see how nice it is, and then you have the product that, as said, even if you haven't tried the experience, you have seen it because you have like you see a lot of videos on Instagram, on TikTok,
Mm.
and so you like what you're seeing, and then you see, okay, there is also the product. So even if I haven't tried the experience, the product in some way can help me living that experience at home, even if I cannot go to Barberinos to get a shave, for example, because I live far away. I'm not planning to visit New York, Milan, or whatever.
Mm.
But there is the product. These guys are, I mean, they are doing an amazing experience because I can see it online. I can see it on Instagram. I like the place where they are doing this experience. I like the color scheme. I like the emotions that this is giving. So why not trying their product? So that's the idea. Even if you're not trying the experience, you see it, you appreciate it, and then you say, okay, let's try their product. They must be good, so let's try the product. And this is actually working.
Okay, and for people watching or listening that are looking to basically scale the recon brands, are there any platforms that are working better for you? Is there any specific platform strategy that you're using to drive the traffic effectively? Is it just organic, or are you leveraging data with some paid ads? What are you doing like in more
We have we
specific
have
matter?
we have paid ads. We have paid ads. This is for sure. So paid ads work, of course. We are not spending too much. Okay, so we are not. The problem for me, the problem with indie brands that they are just buying their sales basically, but then the
Mm.
moment they stop spending, nobody's buying their products any longer. So this has been the problem with many brands that have gone out of business in the last few years. What we are trying to do is to have like to spend on online advertising in a way that allows us to go break even. So what we spend is what we get basically.
Mm.
In this way, I mean, we cannot scale this too much, because if you increase the amount of money that you're spending, then of course this formula doesn't work anymore, because then the algorithm has to, of course, increase the audience, and by increasing the audience, it's harder that this audience buys your product. So you cannot, like, this equation is not working anymore. So we are just spending as much as it takes to, like, go break even
Mm.
for the part, of course, that is can be monitored. So for all the sales that can be linked exactly to the money that we are spending. And then,
Mm.
of course, the triggers all the organic part. So all the organic part is driven by what you are paying. So the online advertising, but also from the classic influencers. So, for example, we are working. Why? Because, like, a lot of our customers are actually influencers in their industry. For example, a lot of chefs come to Barberinos, and so we do some content with these people, asking them questions that are completely different from what regards Barberinos. So we call it podcast, and it's nice because, like, it's a way of generating content by using the fact that when you go to the barber, you like to talk a lot. And so, like, we ask you questions about, I don't know, what was your most difficult challenge while you were a chef? I don't know, for example. And this is very nice. This is generating content. And this is also helping people seeing how nice it is to stay at Barberinos. So to have an experience at Barberinos, and then it triggers the whole buying process that I was talking to you before.
So in the back end, then you're basically ramping up the lifetime value. So even if you acquire a customer or break even, you can make all the money from subscriptions and people basically falling in love with the products, reordering,
Yes,
and pretty much staying as customers for as long as possible.
that's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Exactly. That's correct.
Perfect. I've seen this strategy work many times, and I think that many brands are actually looking to push and scale that for a first front end acquisition and basically just keep increasing the budget. But I've seen also brands even losing money on the first purchase, but with a great product that's repeat purchase. If you focus on really providing that service and having that ultimate experience, it actually pays more to just, keep acquiring new customers, but cultivating that base and having people stay with you for years, for decades even, right?
Yes.
So I really like this approach. And pretty much I'm interested in what you're doing on the back end. Are you probably running email marketing? But do you also try to then put that extra service somewhat into the education or value providing? We have some newsletter, or what are you doing to maintain the customers for as long as possible?
So yes, of course, we are doing, like, email marketing, as probably all the brands that are like that have an online presence. But really, what we do to maintain the customer is trying to be the brand that is always, trying to innovate somehow. It's always expanding. It's always exploring new products. It's always exploring new trends. So the fact that the customer sees that the brand is constantly evolving, is constantly growing, never stops. This is something that keeps the customer engaged with the brand.
Mm.
So, like, new contents on Instagram, education, new products, new retail openings, new partnerships, so with other brands. This is something that is really keeping the customer engaged all the time, because they see a brand that is really evolving, that is young, but at the same time is willing to explore new things, is willing to always be on the edge. So, this is something that is really working well for us.
And are you using maybe something that's not as common in terms of like tools? Because of course, like everybody nowadays is talking about AI, about automation, and I suppose that you're using a bunch of that in different parts of the processes. But I'm interested in you if you're using AI or any other tools in a marketing or automation way that is maybe not as common, but you're kind of piloting that cutting edge technology and figuring out how we can bring more profit or bring more revenue with such a tool.
So with in terms of AI, we are not using that so much. We're using them for some, like, content generation, but it's nothing like particular. For marketing, what we are using is Actually, of course, the CRM, like CRM automation, this is something that we use a lot that allows us, of course, to, because what we have, the advantage that we have is that we have the customers coming to the stores. So we know which services they are doing at the store, which products they are buying. And then, of course, we can like tell them, hey, it's 2 months that you haven't cut your hair. You might want to do it, or you have bought that shampoo. You might want to consider also this conditioner or these
Mm,
other product. What? So this is nothing like this is no rocket science. A lot of brands are doing it. Sorry. And what we are doing is we have, but this is only for our stores. So we
mm,
have developed our own ERP for the stores. This basically is like a proprietary system that allows us on one side to manage like the stores, the inventory, the shifts, and so the agendas. And on the customer side, this through an app allows them to book their treatment and also to have some rewards. Like, for example, every time that they spend money, they can accumulate, we are calling them barba coins. Barba in Italian means beard. So it's called
mm,
beard coins, basically. And so this is something that, of course, also keeps them engaged because they can see like their digital wallet increasing every time that they spend some money with us, and they can of course use these coins to buy service, to buy products. And this is something that is, I mean, it's no rocket science also in this case, but in our industry is not something that is very common because there are not so many apps that can be used by customers that are so sophisticated and allow them this kind of interaction with the brand. For some other industries there are, but I mean, there are not so many barber shops that have this kind of IT infrastructure. So this is something that
mm,
for sure has helped. And then we are actually, based on the fact that we are like artisans in a certain sense, we use a lot of offline marketing. So for example, if we are selling our products to the main Italian perfumery chain, which is called Pinalli, it has around 80 doors in Italy.
mm,
I mean, there are many brands that, of course, are sold in this perfumery chain. How we do to boost our sales? We have a barber corner, which is made of like a trunk and a barber chair. And with this temporary barber corner, we go around in each location of this perfumery chain. We stay there for 1 or 2 days with one of our barbers and promoter, and we offer free services to the customers of this perfumery chain. And so this is
mm,
something that is creating a lot of engagement with the brand, both for the customers, but especially for the salespeople that work in the perfumery chain, because they have the occasion to like see the brand, see the people of the brand that are working. So they fall in love with the brand, and then they are pushing the sales while when we are not there. So this is working very
mm.
well. So this is a sort of offline marketing, traditional marketing, but that is working very well both for our stores and also for our B2B distribution.
It's very nice to go to basics from time to time and rediscover like, and I always like to also get inspired by it, right? Like looking at, okay, what would work with the traditional marketing, how we can take it online, because of course you have that kind of privilege that you're also offline, and it definitely helps to for the products to be seen on the shelf before the person actually buys it from a store. But yeah, I think that the combined creativity is pretty much just leading all the efforts on the organic and then the online sales as well, because people might be shy just to basically see that something's happening, but then they come back home and they Google the brand and explore what's it about and how they want
Exactly.
to have an experience with that.
Exactly.
Is there any specific trend, offline or online, that you're maybe predicting or anticipating in the next 5, 10 years to be kind of incorporated into the e-commerce sector, or how the brand would kind of grow and leverage these trends coming forward?
So for us, actually, all the brands have to, how to say, need to have an offline support that is driving the sales. I don't think that this is true already today, but it will be more and more true in the future. All the brands need like a physical presence somehow, an offline presence. While, I mean, probably in the 2015, it was possible for a brand to be exclusively online, but
Mm,
nowadays Like there are so many brands that are only online that, in my opinion, the customers really want to see it somehow. Like they want to see the physical presence of the brand.
Yeah.
And this is something which is fundamental. And actually, a lot of brands that were only online are building stores or are building experiences like physical offline experiences. And this is something, of course, that we are doing from the very beginning by definition. So this is, I
Mm.
believe, it's really fundamental. Also because, I said, one thing is like seeing the product online, but I mean, this is something that was, as I said before, was fine 10 years ago. But now if you open your Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you are like really, you see advertising of everything, like all the kind of brands, all the kind of products all the time. So, I mean, you're kind of bored and want more, you want something more. And for me, this more is the physical presence. It's something
Mm.
physical experience is something that can like really engage you with the brand that is not cannot be exclusively online.
It's a very interesting point of view because I've heard many opinions on this, and pretty much all were just like the automation and AI doing most of the work. But actually, I agree with this very much because once the online and it's already overrun, as you're saying, with so many brands that the differentiations online will pretty much disappear and it will be more on who is the biggest influencer, who has the kind of most attention grabbing content versus who's actually present in the real world and can grab the person's attention outside of the devices. So I couldn't agree more, and I'm very interested in like how it's going to evolve and what will the brands come up with, because probably even the offline marketing will change. I've already seen so many stores, just Tesco as well, just implementing these screens in the stores in the different aisles promoting different products, right? So it's going to be different type of visual and other types of advertisements. So I'm quite excited for that.
On
And
if I may add,
yeah,
if you think for the yeah, the AI of course is a big revolution, but the problem with AI, in my opinion, is that it's becoming more and more difficult to understand what's real and what's fake or AI produced. Based on this, like having something physical, which by definition is real because it's there, you can touch it and you can feel it, will really make the difference with comparison to what it's only online. For example, I was pretty surprised. A few weeks ago, there was this like big thing in Italy where basically a Chinese company was doing this fake store in Bologna with these two brothers that were selling like made in Italy top brands, and they were forced to close because of like giants in the retail industry, and so they were selling with 70% off, and there were all these nice images of these two brothers like in their 70s and a beautiful store, and it was all fake. It was all fake. There
wow.
was no all the goods like that were sold were actually coming from China, and they were like very low quality. So it was a big big fraud. I mean, you will the more as I said before, it will be more and more difficult to understand what's real and what's AI produced, what's fake. And so, as I said before, like having a physical presence to me is what will really matter in the future for brands to survive and to be successful.
Absolutely, absolutely. They will need some kind of proof that the product is actually real and that they do not really
Exactly.
lose
Exactly.
anything just by trying it out. And I would love to any do the question that would help a lot of people, I believe, since you've been with your brand from the early beginning, right? Like from the start, pretty much bringing it to the life. And if there are obviously many people looking to start their own brand, they have some ideas, but they maybe do not know where to start. What would you recommend them do? Maybe one or two advice if you were to start over and go from scratch, or pretty much just develop the brand in today's world.
Yeah, of course. So for me, the very first thing is the brand, like launching a company is all about execution. And the very first requirement that you need for proper execution is like share of mind. So you need to have your mind fully dedicated to the company that you are launching. And this means
Mm,
that you cannot do it if you're doing something else. So the first thing that I ask to anybody that is willing to launch a company is, are you planning to do it while you are working in your full-time job at the consulting or marketing agency, whatever? Because if the question is if the answer is yes, then I mean you have a problem, because you need to be 100% focused on what you're doing. You cannot do it in the evening. You cannot do it in your spare time. It's impossible. It will never work. It will be a hobby. It will not be a job. So if you want to do it properly, you have to quit what you're doing and be 100% focused on your new venture. So this is for
mm,
me the most important thing that any entrepreneur that wants to do the entrepreneur has to keep in mind. You must be focused 100% on what you are about to do. That's the most important thing to me, because execution is everything, and you cannot execute anything properly if you don't dedicate 100% of your mind to it. So that's the most
mm.
important.
Amazing. I get lots of mixed views on this because not many people are in position that they can afford to kind of just go all in. But I also agree on having that commitment and be basically burning bridges and just having this like an only option. It just gives you a different kind of motivation, and it's all that's on your mind. It's going to be maybe very exhausting and very, very workable couple of months, couple of years, but in the end, it's going to yield fruits, right?
Yeah.
So
If this
yeah,
is really what you want to do, because I agree with you, not everybody could afford it, but it's also a matter of taking risk. I mean, you cannot do it while you are in comfort. It's impossible. I
mm,
mean, it's not something that can work together with the definition of comfort. You have to be uncomfortable to do it properly, because it will
mm,
require, as I said, like a full dedication. And I mean, if you do it while you have your salary that is coming in every month, and like, okay, fine, I'm happy, and so I let's do it. As I said, it's a hobby, it's not a job, so it's a
yeah,
different story.
yeah. That's a very interesting look at it, and I think that some people minimally would need this approach to finally get something working, because there's many people working on 3 4 ventures and try and figuring out which one will blow out, but pretty much just not knowing that whatever they would focus on would actually be the one that would work. So
Exactly,
these,
exactly. That's the thing.
yeah, these
So if
are
you want to
these
do it
are
yourself, then you can be an investor. In that case, you provide money, you can provide some guidance, and then you don't have to do anything. But that's a different story. I mean, it's not doing the entrepreneur, it's doing the investor.
yeah, yeah, and you need to be successful first to be able to get there. So you need to
Exactly.
be probably an
Exactly. Either
entrepreneur
your
first.
family rich, or you need to be successful first. One of the
Yeah,
two.
yeah, absolutely. So this was amazing, Nicole. Thank you for sharing the story. Thank you for sharing all of these advices and looks. I hope that we've helped at least one person to get the business off the ground or get to the right point. I really love the combination of offline and online, and I think that hopefully in a couple months, couple years time, we can reconnect, see how Barberinos grow, and see what kind of other lessons you can share with us, and take it from there.
That would be a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, same for us. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye bye.